actually a bit hoping that I could present this in my dialect, Nordmørs dialect, but I'm going to do it in English. But I prepared it. But I just wanted to say first that I grew up in Battenfjorden, which is just 40 minutes from here. So I coming to Kristiansund, like referring to your memories or your growing up here, coming to Kristiansund, I remember I was skateboarding a lot in my youth, and we went there for skateboarding, and then like went to bars, and then ended up like at Hydron, which is the gas station here. That was the like referring to Hedda's. Yeah, that was the meeting point after the bars closed. We met at Hydron, and there was a lot of things happening at Hydron. We shouldn't talk about that, but yeah, that was. That's my strongest memories of Kristiansund, hanging at Hydron, getting mini burger. Yeah, the cheapest thing you could buy for a snack after a day out. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that project, which we've called the Experimental Housing Project at Svartlamoen. I called the presentation Svartlamoen, Self-Build, Activism, and Urban Ecology. So I'm going to talk about that project, and it's a project of 5 row houses, self-built by these people. So that's the main characters in this project, the 5 families that built their own houses. The total cost of these 5 houses is 3 million. So it's like 8,000 kroners per square meter, because it's quite compact houses, but it's a quite radical low price for houses, which was made possible because of a lot of reuse and the self-build, and that the project was situated at Svartlamoen, which I will talk a lot about, or more about. The project has gone around and got a lot of attention, different media, different places. And I think one of the reasons why people are interested in hearing about this story, about these self-built houses, is that it is an example of something different. It's an example of a different approach to building houses. And I think in the society, or in the place that we're living in now, it's very strict what you're allowed to do, and the frame for production of houses is very limited. So I think people are really relieved to see something that is a bit different, that there's possible also to do something different, and that it's actually a built example, and that's something that is often very strong, that you get an example of something that you can show it to somebody in another city, and you can say, oh, they made it, it's there, it's possible, we can also do it. Yeah. And it's made possible a lot because of the project of Svartlamoen, which is the part of the city where the houses are situated. It's called Gjør det selv-bydelen in this article in Arkitektur. DIY, do-it-yourself community. And I think probably a lot of you know a lot about Svartlamoen and the history of the community, but I will dwell a little bit on it, because for us it was really an important part to understand this community and to understand this part of the city when we started the project. This is the old historical city center of Trondheim. The cathedral is down here, and Svartlamoen is over there on the east side. It's squeezed between a railroad going to north, to Stjørdal, and the old U-boat bunker and the harbor area. So it's like a little kile, a little triangle of houses, which is left of a quite big housing area that was there earlier, and it's originally a houses for workers that worked at the harbor and in the city. So it's, yeah. So, yeah, this is the little triangle of houses that are left of this whole Reina area, which was called earlier Svartlamoen. And Svartlamoen was like after the war, the houses was left empty, and the municipality sold out parts of the area to developers and to næring, commercial businesses, and to build production places. And so then in the 80s, people from the anarchist, punkers, artists started to move into these abandoned houses. A lot of artists from the Art Academy, and a lot of people connected to the UFA, Ungdom for Fri Aktivitet, the self-organized youth house that was in the city. So a lot of people moved into the area and started to take care of the old buildings that was there. And they formed communities, and they organized, they self-organized into being almost like us, having a local democracy there. And then there was still this car shop there. Some of you probably know this story better than me, because we moved there and we lived there from 2011. We started being engaged in this part, so we moved in long after this struggle. But I just wanted to, in sense of talking about how artists engage in city development, I think it's kind of relevant to talk about this story. Because the Strandveien Auto, which was a car dealer that was in this area, got constantly new permits to tear down buildings to expand their businesses, or their business. And the people in the area, the anarchists, the activists, and the artists, they protested against this. And in the 90s, this struggle, or this fight, got to a kind of climax where they used the community there, they used quite tactically artists and art to kind of win forward and not and saving their buildings from not being torn down. And it was, I'm going to show a little bit from a documentary that was made in 2003 by Mai-Lin Bang. It's called Nesten som I Afrika, almost as in Africa. Is that a good translation? I don't know. Yeah. Let's see if the internet works. And I will I'm skipping into the part where maybe we should see just a little bit before this, because at this point, the conflict between the municipality and the car dealer and the people living there was really tense. And the car dealer had gotten the permit to tear buildings down, and the community, they organized and made like barracks. They made platforms on the top of the roofs so you could spot and look for the construction workers that would come and tear down the buildings, or the police that would tear or kick them out. So they made like a whole...
Det sier jo litt om samholdet, da.
Blant annet så fikk vi... The people there came up with the idea of inviting the most popular artists in the city at that time, Håkon Bleken, Håkon Gullvåg, to make the mural, or the kind of iconic...
Håkon Bleken og Gullvåg til å komme og male maleriet I parken.
Ja, det var faktisk sånn at det var han der med det vanskelige navnet Tale Tarum Anum
som, ikke det han heter, tror det, og han som kontaktet, tror jeg, Håkon Gullvåg, og spurte om ikke han kunne gjøre noe, eller at noen kunne gjøre noe gjennom ham, og så kontaktet han meg, og så bestemte vi oss da for å se om vi kunne lage noe. Fordi at det var jo selvsagt at for det første fordi at vi synes jo strøket var bevaringsverdig. For det andre fordi at det er jo morsomt å se om man kan få utrettet noe mot en stor politisk masse.
Det har vært et veldig bra samarbeid med alle her, så det har gått på rekordtid. Nå er det ferdig, nå står det her. Nå er det en del av denne bydelen. Så får vi se hva som skjer. Frisparken, det var en sånn ganske spontan reaksjon at den kom der. Og da hadde vi fått malet der veggmalerier med Gullvåg og Bleiken. Men bystyret hadde vedtatt allikevel at bydelen skulle fjernes, og da ba vi jo kom løpende fra møtet, løp inn på kontoret til Krokstad og så sa at i morgen har vi stor åpning, så kan du være så snill og så liksom flytte vekk bilene her. Så dro de jo fra jobb i 4-tida, stramme ut av folkene, og da begynte vi å hakke og greve og bære stein. Det var en ren sånn der, ren bare forbannelse og frustrasjon. Og da grov vi jævlig dypt. Den vulkanen ble vel støypet opp i løpet av et par dager. Den går jo sikkert 2 meter ned i bakken. Sånn at det ikke skulle være mulig å bare pløye den vekk med en gravemaskin, så var det å ta spatak og hakke opp stein og få armeringsjern langt ned i bakken der, og så bare støype vulkanen. Det var et sinnssykt pæsarbeid, men helt sånn manisk. Altså, nå skulle de faen ikke få det her området.
Vi brukte var vel en dugnadshelg eller noe sånt på å legge armeringsting i bakken, grevne skulpturer, få kunst ute der, lage en mur. Så når Strandveien Auto kom på jobb mandagsmorgen, så var plutselig parken tatt i bruk. Det var litt morsomt. Vi synes det var veldig festlig i hvert fall.
Og da tenkte vi at det vil bli jævlig fine TV-bilder den dagen altså Strandveien Auto nå sender gravemaskiner for å ta det her. Så vil man se at det er rett og slett kulturvandalisme. Så det var litt sånn bevisst sånn at det bare skulle se mer rått ut, rett og slett, når de skulle begynne å rive.
Ja. Den filmen ligger ute på YouTube, så det går an å gå inn og se. Den er ganske fascinerende, for det er jo altså den historien... Oh, sorry, English. Yeah. The story about the mural is quite... It's like a story, living in Trondheim, you hear that story, but about the volcano and about the jaw of the metal jaw and the fence they made and all these activists planning this park during the weekend and then just making this whole... That is a story that's not been told that much, and that's very interesting that they kind of, as a community, they acted and they used art as part of what they, or their approach to saving their community. And they were, like Gebhardt said, they were very tactical about it. And they used media very strategically. So I was just going to show this other little clip from the same documentary, When Motorpsycho, Motorpsycho is a band, quite famous Norwegian band, that have their whole production bases are based on Svartlamoen. And when they won the Spellemann, this is how we looked in, NRK looked in 97. when they won Spellemann in '97. They couldn't be there themselves, but Def Prod was there. So,
Motorpsycho!
Oh, sorry.
Vi har noen vi egentlig ikke vil takke, og det er Trondheim kommune og Strandveien Auto, som ville rive Svartlamoen for å bygge en større bilforretning. Leve Svartlamoen, space is the place.
Yeah. Just a short clip to say that they were very tactical about using media in their struggle against the municipality and Strandveien Auto. So when all these things happened and they got all this media attention, the municipality couldn't just put a lid on this conflict. They had to go into a dialogue with the community. And the dialogue with the community ended up with a regulatory plan. In 2001, it was finished. And the process of making that plan was a really, truly activist. The plan is really an activist product. It's unique in its kind. It says that the whole area is regulated as an urban ecological experimental site. In planning, it's a spesialområde. So it has its own, you can do other things there that you can't do other places in Norway. And that process of making that plan, I talked to Hilde Bøkestad, who was the former head of planning in Trondheim, and she was a young, newly educated architect working with for Asplan Viak as a consultant, working with the community to develop this area or this plan. And she said that 90% of the discussion about making this plan was about the formålsparagraf, about the purpose of the intention of the plan. 90% of the discussion, like the 10% rest was, or like the other discussions about building heights and all these other things that are maybe used a lot of time on in other processes, wasn't that important for the community. The community was really working with the purpose or the values behind it. And that is very interesting, I think. And that's going in there as an architect and being able to work within the framework of that zoning plan or regulatory plan was, for us, it made it possible to make houses or a project that was really compromissless. We could explore the things that we really wanted to by being in this. So in many ways, the project is an answer to the values and the things that are put into the plan. Yeah. I'll skip this part, I think. Yeah. So when we started the process there, it was important for us, like you see here, housing is too important to be left to specialists, is a quote from Susanne Hoffy Øssing and Karsten Hoff, which is a Danish couple working self-build since the 60s. And for us, we wanted to explore how it was possible to make a project where people could have, in a larger degree, the English translation. They could decide more and be more part of the designing and building process of their own houses. That it's maybe when the way we construct houses today, we're missing out on the opportunity of making something that is richer, in a sense, if we involve people in a larger degree. Yeah. So, Svartlamoen, as it is now, is organized. It has a Svartlamoen boligstiftelse, which is the one that has the contract with the municipality of renting the whole area. And then you have the resident association, beboerforeninga, which is all the people living there. So if you want to do something at Svartlamoen, you kind of go through the resident association, and you go to resident meetings, and that's the highest øverste organ, the highest, it's where things are being decided. And the housing association, or boligstiftelsen, is more a formal, that has the formal responsibility, and it has people both from the municipality and people from the association, resident association in it. And we as architects, we kind of worked between the self-builders and the housing boligstiftelsen and the beboerforeninga. So we started the process with the people living there. That was in 2013. We had meetings with them discussing what kind of values were important for them when there was going to be built something on one of the available plots. And then making a proposal for a sketch project, which was decided on one of these yearly stormøte, which is once a year we have a stormøte, where this was decided that this would be one of the main things to work with for the next 5 years to realize this project. So what we did then is to make an open call for people that was willing to build or wanted to build their own houses. Yeah, and we just put the open call out through the network of Svartlamoen and through the network that was around Svartlamoen. And then we got some applications, and we put together with Flyko, which is the flytte- og koordineringsgruppa at Svartlamoen. We put together the group of the 5 self-builders and started working with them, or the 5 families. Working with them in groups, what's important for them, and working with them individually. And yeah, it was a different approach with all of them, I guess. Somewhere like Marcus was really into working with SketchUp, and we were discussing quite detailed things with him. Guro Torfinn was more with a big pile of inspirational photos, and we were going through them. So this was more like a process which would be quite normal for any architecture project, I guess. But then what we did was to develop a sort of frame, a frame where they could experiment and make their own houses within. So we decided to plot into 5 houses and making this kind of module that they could experiment and make decisions as they go along. So when we applied for the building permit, we just had this general plan for all the houses, and we had the facades and things that was just imagined how it would look when it was finished, because we didn't know how it would look, because the decisions would be made on site. The construction method is just a stud frame construction, a quite logical way of using wood, and a very tilgjengelig, available, thank you, an available and well-tested method, and also a quite flexible way of building, where you actually can adapt quite a lot. So, in 2015, we started the building, And that was also the year of the local elections. And at this point, we didn't have the legal contract of the ground where the houses would be put, because there was somebody, the legal department in the municipality was still struggling to make the contract. So what we did then was to make this, or one of the artists involved in the project made this paper mache grunnstein. What's the English word for a grunnstein? Cornerstone, or yeah. It's this ceremony you have when you start a building. You will have the king come down and you will put down or the queen or somebody puts down the... So Per Christian made a grunnstein in paper mache and with this ring around, and then invited all the politicians, all the political parties to come, to be part of this, being in a circle, carrying this. And then Truls was playing guitar with this drone sound, and Siri was singing, and it was this very formal UFO landing into the building site. So all the political parties were there, except FRP, I think, and it got some attention, and then a couple of weeks later we got the legal contract for the ground. So then they could start. This is Jakob and Markus. They're measuring for the foundations for the houses. And as you see here, there's already one that was the communal house. Our idea was that they should build that first together as a group, and they should experiment and get to, because none of them had built a house before. So they were all amateurs. So they should build that house, and with a close dialogue with the local carpenter that was working at Svartlamoen. So they would learn how to build a house, and then they would build on their own house. But they were so eager to start. So once this house was just like airtight and tight for water, they just went on building their own houses, which I think at the moment was the right decision, because the energy in the group was there. They should get going with their own house. Yeah, so here they are trying to figure out in a plot of land where to put the foundations, which I think was also, yeah, that was a very, yeah, I don't know how to, it was not so easy. Yeah, so a lot of the decisions were made on site, like on pieces of paper or on a piece of wood. We would come by, have discussions, and a lot of decisions were made when they were in the space. I think for people that's not very used to looking at models or at drawings or architectural drawings, it's not so easy to understand the space just from a drawing or from a model. So making decisions and making mock-ups in the space together with them, like here, Jakob is imagining where his bed will be. That kind of, and to allow that within the process was very important for the project, I think. That it also, because the building of the houses took 2.5 years, so it was a quite long stretch for this quite small project. But it's, I think it also was important that it took a while so you could have these discussions on site. And one, like every Wednesday, they would have a construction meeting with the carpenter. He's sitting there on live, and discuss what will be this next week's challenges. Yeah. And then after the first, or in the beginning, I remember they started with the foundations and everything was going good, and then we just both me and Håkon and Katrine, which was the other ones that was working on this project as architects, we were all away. And they were going to build this, the one element in the construction that's quite difficult, or it's not this standard, just stud frame construction. It's this fagverk, the beam, that make it a open space. And if you see on this photo, you see on top there, they put the studs in the fagverk the other way around. You see? So just be making this, realizing quite early that, oh, okay, we need to be there more than we, because we were just out of architecture school and none of us had ever followed up any construction site like this. So we thought, okay, let's leave them and see how it goes, and then coming back and seeing, okay, this we have to do again, actually. You have to take that one down and change the position of these, otherwise you won't get, yeah, or at least you will get less less openings on the windows that was going up there. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, the houses are all insulated with hump or trefiber. Wood, what's the? Trefiber in English? Wood fibers, thank you. And the materials are, a lot of it is reused, which is also one of the things that are with the stud frame construction, that you actually can adapt it to the things you find. So it's rather about making a design where you can adapt it to the things that are available, rather than making a need for something that is specialized. So a lot of all the windows are reused, and a lot of the surfaces, the outside surfaces, the interior surfaces are reused. And this leads to a kind of richness in the facades, and that I think we would never have drawn a facade like this, but it happens because it's been a process with them, and they made the decisions on site. And I think this is a quite interesting thing when you kind of realize that just making a kind of frame for a project, and you take a step back, and then they make decisions on site. And a lot of them are artists, and they're quite used to being in this process, this open-ended process, and making decisions as they go along. Yeah. And it also makes it possible to reuse materials in a different way, because you can care for the material in a different way when you're not have to pay for the carpenter. So here Johanna is taking down panels from a house at Hegra, just north of Trondheim, which was a barn that was, or a barn house that was gonna be taken down, or barn house, yeah, it was on a farmhouse. And then she adapts them and puts it back up in her new house. And all the interior, when we got to the interior, they had a budget on 50,000 for all inside. All surfaces inside the house should be done within 50,000. And that includes the kitchen, the bathroom, and everything. Not the plumber, of course, but the surfaces should be within 50,000. So that makes that you have a very different approach to materials. So in Per Christian Line's house, you see, and these panels here on the wall is these panels that are from the old spice factory at Heimdal. And the fence around are these gymnastic ladders from St. Olavs, and the window in there is from Lademoen kunstnerverksted. They changed changed their windows, and Per Christian used one of those. And in Markus and Johanna's house, it's like leftovers from Møre og Romsdal Kunstsenter exhibition, combined with, from Hegra, and then the stairs are like these fold-up chairs that they made. And you get these really, like these niche, which is Aston Martin chairs from Aston Martin, and the relief on the wall is leftovers from Erlend Leirdal's atelier. And the fence here. Yeah, Johanna and Markus in the process really got into enjoying and experimenting with colors together as a couple. And this fence was part of an exhibition also, so we made it as a sculpture. And they had this idea in their house that they wouldn't have corners or try to limit the amount of corners, so they have like curved angles at a lot of the corners and walls. This is their bedroom. This is from Møre og Romsdal Kunstsenter, from the exhibition you did there, these panels, And this is Siri and Torfinn's house, which has ull filt, woolen filt. You see the gray one on top, which is left over from an exhibition at Nasjonalmuseet, and it's mixed with, it's a lot of different places, and the material tells stories to them about where they found it, and it makes a relation to their house, which is very different than in a normal. And it makes a kind of facade and a house or houses that are not it's different than what's usually built, because it has I think it has the energy of each and every one of them in the facades also. And this is the common house, where they have a laundry room and a guest apartment and some extra storage, because the houses they're like 60 to 70 square meters each unit, so they're it's not compact living, but for a family they have to. And that was also something we decided on, that it should be possible for a family to build it, that it's not making it a little bit smaller also makes it easier maybe, or more accessible as a self-build project. So this is the group. Or this was the group in the beginning, and then some of them found some partners and got some kids. So now there are 2 more adults and 3 more kids, I think, living there. So they're still also trying now. Markus and Johanna has 2 small kids, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we make this house work, make adaptations, and make it for our new situation when the kids grow older. And the thing is also about this project and about Svartlamoen area is that the houses are owned by the housing association. So the people that have put down all this labor into building these houses, they have a rental contract on the houses. A rental contract with no end, of course. And also, what that means is that the housing association is the one that also took the loan in the bank and the one that took the risk in investing in this project. So and then it was decided that it should be a project where the house or it should be a project where the income that the housing association gets from the houses, the rent should just be like it should even out. So for them, like a loan on 3 million for 5 houses, it ends up being quite cheap rent, like which is the same as the rest of the area, which is also put down in the regulatory plan. I didn't say that earlier, but in the regulatory plan it says that it should be cheap housing, it should be experimental housing, it should have communal or participatory processes, and it should apply to the or kind of explore different approaches to urban ecology. So, yeah, sorry. And then the houses was finished in 2017, 2018, last family, yeah. Or they're not finished yet, or they're still doing adaptations, so it's still in process. But then Svartlamoen, as many of, or as one area, has gone through like the phase of being a workers area and being left, and then being squatted, and then being more formalized into an urban ecological experimental site, and then now still being dependent on political, they need the politicians to want this project, Svartlamoen. And they've been struggling now since 2020 to get a new contract, which was the last slide that I think we should just celebrate, that now the struggle, they signed at 35 years. Earlier it's been 10 years, and then a new 10-year, and then they got the new contract of 35 years, which means that the community can go into a whole new thinking much longer in horizons, in how they plan and how they develop and what they can experiment with. So I was just thinking that we should end a little, or dwell a little bit on how this can be relevant also for the situation in Kristiansund, because Svartlamoen is an area, it has a lot of production of art in the area. It's a lot of artists that live there. They have cheap rent, like Gebhardt, I didn't have, but in the documentary, Gebhardt says that for Motorpsycho, it was really important that they could have the cheap rent, that they had everything they needed for their production in the surroundings of them. They had the rehearsal room, they had people doing posters, they had people doing management, and they had everybody just living at Svartlamoen. And that made it possible for them to be artists in the way they should. So in Svartlamoen you have like Strandveien Auto building now is a rehearsal room, a dance hall or a dance studio, and it has on the other side there is a black box and a concert hall, and it has a smaller stage also with a bar. So it's almost like this cultural kulturhus, but it's in a community and it is spread out in different buildings. But it has the functions as a kulturhus, but it also has the functions of production, and it has the functions of living around it. And that is also something to think about going into the process of the new kulturhus here, I think, is to think about that it's important that the people that are filling the houses, that are making productions for the houses, that they have places to live, that they have places to produce. And I think in Kristiansund it's interesting because I think it's possible here that you could have houses for artists, you could have places where people could create, where you can have your studio, and yeah. So it's maybe, I don't know, something to think about, maybe, yeah. I'll leave it there. Any questions? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we did all of that. Because the first thing they did was to decide, okay, we should buy a storage container. So the first thing that was put on the construction site was a storage container, so they could start harvest materials. And then they got into the local newspaper saying that we need materials, but also being part of this community at Svartlamoen, the carpenter that's live or work there, he gets calls from places where things are being taken down or torn down, or a lot of the materials are also from the construction shops where they get half broken things, like all the gyps. We need to put on this gyps plaster plates on the outside for the fire and things between, and all of those were just donated from because they were, all of them had a little chip on the edge, so you just cut off that and you could use them, but they couldn't sell it at the shop. And so it was a mix. You would get a call from St. Olav saying, okay, we have this material, maybe it's interesting for you. And then they got this gym ribbevegg from there. And but a lot of it is also just looking at finn.no. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm. I don't know, in Norway it would be, or at least to build the way we did here, it would be the tetthetskrav and energy, but also because we got all these dispensation, sorry, the English word for this, dispensations, yeah, from the plan. And the building law, and that was on energy and air tightness and accessibility, and yeah, that was the main things that would be kind of more difficult if it wasn't because it was on this. But I think it's getting there, because now you can argue a little bit about that it's reuse of materials and you can get some, yeah. So it's getting there, that it might be easier also, but we focused a lot on making a construction that is self-build friendly, like not having it, because the insulation is 15 centimeter, so it's not much. But to not have this extra layer of things, making it more difficult to kind of simplify the construction, but still make it work as a building. Yeah. But we got the energy prize from the municipality, so they have to like it a little bit, even energy-wise, yeah. Yeah. It was a little bit similar, because it felt like we needed to do it, because the legal department in the municipality, like, we call them every week and they say, next week, and they did that for half a year. So it was like, okay, now we just need to get this, because the energy in the group, we have to start this process. So it's like, so we did it also a little bit just to get the attention, but I don't know if it's really connected, if the person in the legal department, yeah, never know, yeah. It was legal things like organize, because they were working with the contract of renting the ground. Yeah, and the only play, because down in the corner here you see, it's called Nyhuset, which is 4-story high, massive or cross-laminated timber building, which was built by or designed by Brendland and Christoffersen, and that was the first time and only time they did it before in this area, making this type of contracts. And now doing it again some years later, we just wanted them to do the same that they did here, but it was very, for them, it was difficult for them to see that the land here should be valued differently than a land somewhere else in the city. And you ended up with a very expensive contract. So, yeah. And then they had to go some rounds and then ending up just following the same as at Nyhuset, but yeah. Yeah, the regulation plan only kind of opens up if the politicians and the administration wants it, sort of. They still need to want it. You will have the same, like in Oslo, you have Hausmania, which also has a quite, not completely the same, but a similar regulation. But it's not been dealt with in the same way because the administration and the politicians haven't maybe wanted it in the same way, or kind of, yeah, I don't know, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's been discussions if they could buy it, the whole land, but at the moment the Boligstiftelsen doesn't have the finances of doing it. Yeah, yeah. Like when we started this project, it was difficult for the Boligstiftelsen to get a loan in the bank for 3 million because they were kind of almost bankrupt and they were trying to establish. But it's going better now because they own those buildings, which then after finished, and they used 3 million, they were valued to 12 million, so that kind of rises the whole economic situation for them, and yeah. Yeah.